Welcome to the Now. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Adam.
Easily one of the most anticipated games that made a showing this E3 was Cyberpunk 2077, the super ambitious new project from the Witcher developer CD Projekt Red, which you had a fun fact about. I didn't know it.
Yeah, I think it's actually, in the Polish pronunciation is something like CD Projekt, but for this presentation we'll just do project because it's a little easier.
Right, like we call Mojang all the time, so... But we know something more. Anyway, here's the rub about their E3 presence. Aside from an admittedly really awesome trailer, they only showed the game itself behind closed doors. Luckily for us, we got to go behind those doors and take a 50-minute tour of the game, which taught us a lot about what it's all about and what we can expect. Adam went through a bunch of that on the latest episode of Glitch Please, like in depth. Adam has a lot of notes about it, but if you want a condensed version of the biggest things we learned, here we go.
So the biggest news right off the bat was that it was played in the first-person perspective. So Cyberpunk is a first-person game. Not a first-person shooter, a first-person role-playing game with shooter elements, which they were very clear.
So it's a first-person shooter RPG.
Correct. But sort of first-person RPG shooter, I think, is what they want to sell it as. And that might be surprising if you were a veteran of the Witcher series. And that might be good or bad depending on your preference, but CD Projekt has their own reasons for doing this. In their presentation, they made it very clear that a first-person perspective allows their game to feel more personal, and that is made very clear early on when V, the main character, pulls an enemy close to her, then executes them at close range. It's
nice.
Super brutal. For those concerned over the shift in perspective, No-Clip creator Danny O'Dwyer made a simple and compelling point via Twitter that Cyberpunk is a game where you fire guns inside of buildings and not a game where you swing swords in fields.
Which would, make a lot more sense to be first person. You need to be able to see your entire field of vision in that case.
Exactly, and he went on to talk about examples of how the game is taking advantage of the perspective by having things like a meeting in a car and how the CYBERGEAR can actually change your perception of the world from the first person.
Yeah, this shouldn't be a huge surprise. I guess there have been rumblings for a while to be first person, but people were also hoping that they could customize a character and then see it. So that'll be more cutscene related, but next point, you can create your own Cyberpunk. In Cyberpunk, you'll be playing a character of your creation, an original character, rather than filling the shoes of a predefined hero like in CD Projekt's previous games, specifically The Witcher. Character creation begins with choosing your character's gender, continues through customizing how your character looks, which includes everything from hair length to body type, and even
beard customization. They made that very clear to me.
And in addition to making your Cyberpunk as handsome as possible, you can define your character's stats and backstory as well. So it ends up being entirely your personal Cyberpunk.
Yeah, they made it very clear that they want this to be a role-playing game where you are creating a character and filling that role. They also made it clear that there's no class. Like, you don't pick a class. The class is what they call a fluid class system. I believe they talked about 3 separate classes: the the Netrunner, the Techie, and the Solo archetypes. But you don't select those. You more just sort of branch into those abilities.
You build into this direction.
You can be all of one or a mix of them or whatever. So you kind of get to be your own Cyberpunk.
Build as you like. They're not going to label you.
Right.
Next thing up, environmental destruction. In many games, you have the option to go through a door, you crawl through a vent, even jump through a window to get your objective. Well, Cyberpunk, you can do all those things, yes, but if you're feeling extra aggressive, you can also just straight up shoot down the walls. In the E3 presentation, the game showcased the characters unloading on a wall that had an enemy behind it in order to get a better shot. Also showed some unintentional, potentially environmental damage as they were firing at enemies behind cover, and then the pillars they were behind begin to crumble, which could then have some other impact on your battlefield, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's always nice to see games like let you just take your own path rather than, oh, you can go through the window or you can go in the vent or go through the door. You say, I don't want this wall here, and just shoot it down. They didn't show complete building destruction, but I think we can expect that most, at least walls, will be destructible. Maybe not the whole structure itself, but it's cool to have that freedom.
Yeah, and also worth noting, and this may be speculation. Well, it is speculation on my part, but I'm wondering how much your build out ends up impacting that. So if you decide that you are investing in heavy guns, if that's the gear that you're going with, you may have an easier time shooting through walls than someone who loads out differently. So that can also have an impact on whether or not you can shoot through the walls. Maybe not everyone can.
Totally, yeah. The other big thing in this game, if it wasn't made abundantly clear from the onset, the game is set in a future that lets you modify just about everything about yourself with cybernetic augments called CYBERGEAR.
Catchy.
In the demo, we got to see a sample of the available upgrades, which included visual combat enhancers, grip upgrades, and even, yes, arm knives.
What is called? These have a name.
They're called the Mantis Blades.
Mantis Blades, there we go.
But arm knives is also pretty catchy. Consider it.
It's very descriptive.
The visual combat enhancers, a fancy term for cyber eyes, gave V the ability to scan objects and people in her environment, as well as the ability to zoom in. Palm upgrades gave V a visual readout of whatever gun she was holding, as well as a sight. Aside from stabbing, her Mantis Blades were
knife arms.
Knife arms, excuse me, her knife arms. They allowed her to stab into a wall to hold herself in place, and then jump down on an enemy, perform an execution, and I think she also lopped someone's head off with them.
Well, I mean, if you've got them, why wouldn't you?
Right. So CYBERGEAR is pretty crazy. They showed a few examples. In addition to what we talked about, they also showed the ability for bullets for you to see the trajectory of bullets. So if an enemy is behind a wall, you can shoot the wall behind him and see where it's bouncing off, and then just line your shot up around a corner.
Just bend to the bullets. It's like Wanted, the video game.
Right, exactly.
That was the name of that movie, right? Where you like bend to the bullets.
That was absolutely the name of that.
Nice. Good work, Angelina Jolie. You know what's another interesting thing about this CYBERGEAR and loadouts and things like changing out your eyes is this is another thing that'd be really difficult to do with third person.
Yeah.
So in the demo, they like change out the eye, and then all these additional. The HUD changes.
Yeah, there's
and
HUD
offers
changes.
new features, and that'd be really difficult to reflect properly in third person.
And it was a cool moment in the demo because when they shut down her eyes that were in her head, the screen went black, and then the system booted, and your new eyes, which were not in your body yet, were looking at you, and then they placed them in. So it was really cool.
Maybe they're Bluetooth. You just pair them.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a ton of stuff we haven't seen, but so far the CYBERGEAR that they've shown looks awesome.
Now, you are also going to find NPCs out living their own lives in this world. And this was a point CD Projekt Red drove home during their presentation, that they're working to make sure that NPCs feel alive. And to do this, CD Projekt is giving each NPC a routine, one that even changes based on day and night. So in the demo that they were showing, for example, the player called an NPC. NPC didn't pick up right away. It took a couple times. And it was hard to tell from the demo if this was scripted or if it was a bug or if, you know what, the NPC was busy. They were doing their own thing. But that's just one example. I think we can expect CD Projekt to make Night City feel alive and bustling, because that's what you're looking for in the future, right? You're expecting a lot of people around doing all kinds of things at all times of day. And they might not just be waiting around for you. I mean, you're very important. But they got things they're doing. It's
very apparent, like if you played The Witcher, different cities had different dialogue that pertained to like the part of the world that they were in. There were already day and night cycles, and they made it really clear that like we want this to feel really alive. It's not just like the NPCs are walking from here to there. Like we want them to have a life that they're living in. And that will reflect upon the world you're in, which is the next big feature: a big open world with no load times.
The good segue.
Right. The vast city in the world of Cyberpunk 27 is known as Night City. It's comprised of 6 districts. The districts in the city are the city center, Watson, Westbrook, Haywood, Pacifica, and Santo Domingo. The districts range from luxurious neon high-rises to half-abandoned slums overrun with gang activity. And
As any good futuristic city does, you gotta have the range.
And has everything in between as well. Buildings will be explorable. We don't know about every building yet, but the ones that are explorable will have multiple floors with NPCs, secrets, potential quests. So we'll know that whatever we do get to explore, there's going to be a lot. They showed V in her apartment, and
V is the name of the character in the demo.
Yes, V is the name of the character. I'm referring to her as she. Can be either male or female.
But in this case, the character they made for the demo was female.
Exactly. She is in what's called a megastructure, which is just like Judge Dredd. Imagine a giant apartment complex that goes up like 50 stories, and they said you can explore up and down it. You can find NPCs, secrets, stuff like that. So
basically, mini cities.
Yeah, the verticality is another thing that in the Witcher installment, in the Witcher series, they did not have a ton of that. So expect more up and down exploration this time around.
Yeah, and I'm picturing a lot of really cool opportunities for the settings. I mean, if you've caught like obviously Blade Runner or Blade Runner 2049, Also, Altered Carbon. If you watch that series on Netflix, just really cool examples of the kinds of settings and the different range that we could be looking for. Really excited about all that.
Yeah.
Also really exciting, vehicles are in. Confirmed at the presentation, Cyberpunk will feature vehicles. So far, CD Projekt confirmed cars and motorcycles. It's unclear if we'll have anything outside of those two, but at the very least, walking won't be the only way to get around Night City. There were vehicles in flight in both the trailers and in the demo, but no flying vehicles for us, the player, have been confirmed just yet. So we'll see. As if driving itself isn't a big enough deal, because it's very convenient, vehicular combat is also featured in the game, complete with destructible vehicles. So you can get in fender benders. It's the future.
Yeah.
While driving, players will also have the option to switch between first and third person perspectives, which is really useful. I prefer driving in third person.
Yep.
But I know some people prefer driving in first person. It's all down to you.
Yeah, and they also, talking about vehicle combat, they did show her leaning out a window and using her machine pistol to shoot at other cars. So that's totally in the game,
Sweet
and it looks
chase
awesome.
sequences. It's going to be fun.
And in a world where just about everyone upgrades their bodies with CYBERGEAR, it's unsurprising that they also have an interface port.
Johnny Mnemonic coming at you.
Players can use their own port to do things like receive mission data, watch video playback in private. But what would a Cyberpunk game be without hacking? Well, well, not only can players hack terminals and doors, but they can even hack their enemies. Players will be able to jack into a disabled baddie's port. This is not innuendo, this is in the game.
Are you sure?
And they can activate quick hacks on the enemy's squad mates. This was demonstrated when V remotely disabled the enemy gang members' guns, which gave her the upper hand in the fight.
I'm hoping to be able to use that to just give people really inappropriate cravings, like, now you want ice cream and fish.
The interface they showed for hacking enemies was really reminiscent of like hackers and stuff like that. It wasn't just a command line. It was
The
there was
Gibson,
like
it's
there was like
finding us too
visual
fast.
there's like visual representations like blocks and things like that. It looks real dumb and real cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Also really important for this game is going to be mobility. If you felt like Geralt wasn't the most agile of characters, fear not, because V more than makes up for that. So in the demo, when V entered combat, she was able to run along walls, stop and hang in place using her sweet...
Mantis blades.
No.
Oh, arm knives.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
And so she could hang in place, then jump down from high up to enter combat. Also, she did a really sweet execution of a midair dodge to the side to avoid incoming fire, so that's dope. CD Projekt mentioned that these abilities came primarily from this solo class. So again, it's what that direction, if that's the build out direction you want to go, you get those skills. And we haven't seen everything that V can do, but it's pretty clear that zipping around the environment is going to be a big focus, and that they want to make that a lot of fun, and that there's going to be a lot of different options for doing so, like different ways you can get around.
And this doesn't need a whole lot of explanation, but there are exoskeletons in the game. And by that, I mean basically mech suits like the power loader. Currently, we've only seen enemies use them, but we can dream. I would like to use one of those one day.
Maybe that's like an end game thing you can get, and then you just stomp around.
Exactly. Punch through the walls instead of shooting through them.
Because, I mean, shooting through them, that's so yesterday. That's so 2076.
Right. And even if we can't use them, if nothing else, we can rejoice in the fact that we've already seen plenty of enemy variety. So, yeah. Excited about exoskeletons just because they're really cool.
Yeah, and watch out for the enemies in the exoskeletons, because they can probably also punch through the wall.
Yes, they can.
It's only fair if I can do it. It's unfair if they're doing it.
Totally.
That's just cheap.
But we can shut them down remotely, so maybe it evens out.
Yeah. Overall, game looks really cool. I would love to see them release this demo publicly. That they only showed it. It was a 50-minute demo. They showed behind closed doors only. But the feedback across the board has been like just universally positive.
Dude, it was unbelievable. When I walked out of that demo, I was like starry-eyed and like could barely talk. It was so cool, man.
And reportedly, that is an actual build of the game running on a high-end PC. So, fingers crossed that this isn't, we're not getting a Watch Dogs 2 situation here where what you see is a vertical slice and then the game isn't reflective of that. Of course, we've still got a very long wait for it. We're not getting this anytime tomorrow, but it seems like the systems they've got in place are really cool. They are definitely branching out from a lot of the things they did with The Witcher. They're not trying to do just The Witcher, except in a city in the future.
Right. No, it's a completely different game. Like, it's apparent from the ground up, man. Ugh.
Yeah, let us know what you're most excited to see in Cyberpunk 2077, whether it's a confirmed feature or whether it's something that you're hopeful that we'll get. And definitely make sure that you like this video and subscribe to our channel. We will be covering Cyberpunk as much as we can.
I will give you
in the
everything
lead
I
up
have
to launch, because we're very, very excited for it. And also, big thanks to CD Projekt for giving Adam a little statue.
That's right. I love it. It's my baby.